Hey folks, Stephen from Wagtail Urban Farm. Today I want to talk about food scraps coming out of our kitchen and what to do with them. So we generate a lot of food scraps. This bucket is 1 week's worth from our household. To put it into the compost, I just throw it in, spread it around fairly thinly. That's a high nitrogen content. What I then want to do is complement it with some carbon. I always have a pile of leaves and things that are just sort of dry or drying that I've been bringing in from the garden. And I'll just scatter some of that over the top. And then a little trick that I learned to make sure that it does break down is either get another bit of compost that's already finished composting, or just a little bit of garden soil. Not much, just sprinkle that on the very top and then cover it. If it's a bit dry, give it some water. It shouldn't be wringing wet, but just enough moisture so that the bacteria and the fungi can help break it down. And that's it. It's a really simple process, but it takes a lot of space and it's important to turn it over. So if that's too much work for you, maybe a worm farm is your best option. So one of my favourite ways of converting food scraps into useful nutrients for the plants in the garden is with a worm farm. Now this, I know it looks like a bench, but it's actually a worm farm made out of an old bathtub. Just some holes cut into the side with an angle grinder, a frame to support it, and an old screen door that came off of hard rubbish as a lid. Very simply, lift the lid up, lift up these pieces of timber that help protect the worms from high heat. Hessian sack is really good just to keep the moisture level constant. And then in here is where the worms live. All I do is I take my food scraps and I just layer them on top, you know, not too heavily. You want the worms to be able to get up to the soil surface and breathe, I guess. And then inside here is where all those wonderful worms are doing their magical work. Now this stuff, the worm castings, is one of the best things. It's like a tonic that you can give to your plants, especially potted plants. They love it. You mix it into the top of the potting mix and it gives them a lot of nutrients and helps them with their growth. To access it, once the worms have used up all of the food scraps on the soil surface, leave it open to the sun. The worms don't like the sun, so they burrow down to the bottom of the farm, and then you can just scrape those castings off, take them away and use them however you want. So there you have it. That's a very large worm farm. If that's too big for you though, there's some other options. The next step down from there is one of these. You've probably seen them for sale in hardware stores and garden centres. Really simply, you put your food scraps in the top, the humus collects in here, or the worm castings, and then the juice collects down the bottom. This one obviously has a tap, so you can turn it on, take as much of the juice as you need, and then give it to your plants. If this is still a bit too complicated or you don't have the space for one of these, a really simple way of utilising worms in the garden is to make a worm tower. Now all it is a piece of PVC pipe. This one I got from a building site. I saw it in the skip and I went and asked someone if I could take it. They said, yeah, of course. I've drilled holes. I've put bigger holes at the bottom, small holes through the middle, and then no holes at the top. I'll bury this in the ground and I'll bury it about 20 centimetres above the highest hole. That's just so mice can't dig down and get into it to get to the food scraps. And then I'll just keep feeding it. Once it starts to fill up with food scraps, I know I have to lay off and just let the worms do their job. But this way the worms are able to pull all that nutrient out and then spread it through the soil around the plants. I've got one here. All I use is a plant saucer over the top to stop critters from getting in. And you can see how happy and healthy the plants are. There you go. Just a couple of bits of advice to help get the nutrient out of your food scraps and back into the soil. If you have any more questions, there's definitely a lot of resources online, but probably the best thing you can do is go down to a community garden, just like this one, and ask some of the gardeners there. They're always willing to share their advice. All right, thanks for watching.